Now please welcome back to the stage Mika Brzezinski, founder of Know Your Value, co-host Morning Joe, and Forbes 3050 Summit Chair.
Hello, hello. This is going to be really special. So what I have to do right now is vamp. Because, does anybody here watch Morning Joe? Okay, that wasn't a lot, but that's okay. I expect that we are global this time next year. So what's happening right now is we are at 4:06. In 1 minute, we're going to start our live segment. So fix your hair, check your lipstick, and I'm waiting for my husband, who is hosting the show alone right now, to toss to me, and then we're going to go live. Question, Kate Setta, where's my camera when I address the camera? Point it to me. What? Oh, good Lord, that's far. Okay. Him? That's my camera. Okay. So that's when I'm on Morning Joe. And what I would love, we're going to have a really incredibly important conversation with really the legends of our time, women who have changed the world. They're doing it right now. I would love for you to not worry that we're on live television and give them the most incredible round of applause. This is a really important moment for women in America, around the world, in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and we're going to have a really important, profound, I think, conversation about that. So I'm waiting for my husband to toss to me. And for those who have watched Morning Joe, this could be a while. I'm just saying. No, they're getting close. So we're about 20 seconds away. Kate, you feeling that? Yeah. Okay. If we could just stand by. All right, Joe, thank you so much. Hello to everybody on Morning Joe from everyone here at the 3050 Summit in Abu Dhabi. Say hi to everyone. We're having a great time, and we're about to have a really important conversation. Our next guests have dedicated their lives to advancing the cause of women around the world, and we could not be more honored to bring them together for this iconic conversation on International Women's Day right here in Abu Dhabi, truly the crossroads of the world. So please, as each woman comes to the stage, give it up for these legends. This is going to be an incredible moment live on Morning Joe. And we'll start with sports icon Billie Jean King, who started her career by changing the world for women in sports. It's the 50th anniversary, if you can believe it, 50th anniversary of the Battle of the Sexes, with 90 million watching this tennis match around the world. And perhaps no other sporting event has played a more significant role in developing greater respect and recognition for female athletes. It's also the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Women's Tennis Association, which Billie Jean King started. And it's the 50th anniversary of Billie Jean King making sure women were paid equally at the US Open. She knew her value. She's also the first woman to receive the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom, and she's the author of the upcoming book, Trailblazers, the unmatched story of women's tennis. Please welcome to the stage, Billie Jean King. Yes! Give it up! You're the best. Right here. Randall will take you. Thank you, Randall.
Thank you, Randall.
Yes, we are also absolutely thrilled. We are about to bring to the stage Gloria Steinem, who is here with us today. The acclaimed journalist and trailblazing feminist is perhaps best known for her activism in the women's liberation movement. She fought for equal rights and greater opportunities for women as the co-founder of Ms. Magazine, which was really at the forefront of feminist journalism. That was back in 1971. She's also the co-founder of New York Magazine. We are so very honored to bring to the stage Gloria Steinem as part of our 3050 iconic conversation. Awesome. Right over there. Woohoo! Look. Yes, open the water for Billy Randall. Thank you. Thank you. You ready? You ready? Okay. Also joining us right here on stage in Abu Dhabi for our special live hour on Morning Joe, the First Lady of Ukraine, Olena Zelenska. Please come to the stage. There you are. As you all know, Madam Zelenska is the symbol of extraordinary courage of women. She really represents the women and the families of her war-torn country. And it's with great honor that we have you here in our presence today. She oversees humanitarian aid to orphanages, large families, and the elderly who have remained in her country. She started Books Without Borders, getting 260,000 books printed in Ukrainian for displaced Ukrainian children across the world. And she created the national program on mental health and psychosocial support, so very needed for the people of Ukraine. And she has a foundation that she presented to the UN General Assembly. So First Lady Zelenska, welcome to 3050 on Morning Joe. Thank you. And finally, I could not be more honored to bring to you the woman who will moderate this conversation with me, none other than Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Hello.
I would stand up, but I'm covered with wires. So I just want to say, Madam Secretary is a champion of equality, former U.S. Senator, former Secretary of State, former first woman presidential nominee, and the woman who famously proclaimed that human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights. It is really great to have you here at the 3050 Summit.
Thank you so much, Mika.
And why don't we, I know you're the moderator, but I'm gonna start with you for a few, just real quick at the top here. That declaration that you made at the UN World Conference for Women in Beijing, 3 decades later, we would think the United States would be leading, and yet some of our children and grandchildren have fewer rights than we had. Can you talk about the consequences of that reality as it pertains to women's rights in America, but also around the world?
Well, first of all, I think it's fair to say that we're making slow but steady progress on a range of issues that affect women and girls, and we have been dramatically set back by 2 things. By COVID, which had a disproportionate impact on women and girls around the world, and a lot of consequences such as increases in domestic violence, increase in child marriage, increase in unemployment, and we have seen organized pushback to the advancement of women. And just yesterday, the Secretary General of the United Nations said that based on current data post-COVID, it would take 250 years for women to achieve pay equality. And they also pointed out that if you look at the range of social, political, economic, cultural advancement goals that we've had, it would take 300 years. So it's kind of distressing, to be honest, as we're gathered here to see what we're finding in so many areas. And quickly in the United States, we have stalled on pay equality and pay equity. If you look at founders and venture capital, 1.9% of all venture capital in last year went to women, which is even less than it was in 2021. So I think the bottom line is we have a lot of work to do, and we can't take any of the progress that has been made for granted because, as you said, Mika, with the Dobbs decision and other kinds of organized institutional pushback, we're seeing a lot of what we did take for granted in terms of rights and opportunities at risk. And then finally, I'm so glad that Olena Zelenska is here because women are women and children are the primary victims of conflict and of climate change, and there is no place that unfortunately, tragically shows us that more dramatically than Ukraine today, but there are a lot of other conflicts, a lot of other challenges that we have to take into account as we look at gender apartheid in Afghanistan, the persecution and oppression of girls and women exercising their freedom of choice in Iran and so many other places.
Wonderful. And Madam Zelenska, to touch on what Madam Secretary said, you've been working with first ladies around the world to find solutions and to help with the challenges facing the people of Ukraine, the people you represent. How have you forged these diplomatic partnerships, and what have you been able to accomplish?
First of all, thank you for having me here. I will switch on Ukrainian, and I hope it will be the translation. Дуже дякую за це запитання. По-перше, ця співпраця, вона не виникла за один день. Це результат нашої роботи, результат ідеї, яка створила саміт перших леді та джентльменів 2 роки тому, за рік перед початком повномасштабного вторгнення в Україну. І я зараз зроблю паузу, щоб перекладач могла перекладати трішки.
Thank you very much for the question. First of all, this cooperation came about not overnight. It is the result of 2 years of work. We had this idea for the very first time 2 years ago, 1 year before the full-scale invasion.
Ми хотіли об'єднати таку спільноту наших перших леді та джентльменів, якийсь на кшталт професійного клубу, для того, щоб обмінюватися думками, розробляти спільні гуманітарні проекти. І в перший же день після початку повномасштабного вторгнення ця спільнота показала себе як потужну силу. Вони, мої колеги, перші прийшли на допомогу навіть раніше, ніж деякі уряди та президенти.
We wanted to create a community. We wanted to create a club, so to speak, a professional club of first ladies and gentlemen. And actually, it was a very good idea because we wanted to do humanitarian projects, but even on the first day after the war had started, many of them showed their support. They showed that they were a powerful force, and they reacted even faster than some governments and presidents.
З деякими з моїх колег ми швидко організовували вивіз українських онкохворих дітей. Це потрібно було зробити дуже швидко за кордон, тому що діти не можуть лікуватися від раку під бомбардуванням. І вони продовжують опікуватися в своїх країнах ними і зараз. Ми разом створили підтримку для наших вимушених переселенок за кордоном, і вони опікуються ними і зараз. Тому ми можемо бути впевненими, що ця спільнота не тільки формальне об'єднання, але це діюча організація, яка може рости, і я впевнена, до нас будуть приєднуватися все більше і більше наших колег.
They were very quick, for example, to evacuate our little cancer patients abroad because they cannot be treated for cancer under the bombs and missiles. And they continue to provide treatment for these children in their countries. They also created started a cooperation to help our displaced women abroad, and they're continuing to care for these women in their countries. They have shown that this is not just a formality. It is an organization that works, that can continue to grow and increase in number.
Що мене найбільш надихає, що ми показали, що м'яка сила, з якою постійно асоціюють перших леді, це не просто якась формальна назва, це дійсно сила, і вона може бути не тільки м'якою, і в поєднанні ми можемо набагато більше, ніж кожна поодинці.
What really inspires me is that previously it was thought that first ladies are just soft power, but we have shown that it is not just a formality. We're not just a soft force. We are a force, and we can continue to change the world.
So I think it's a perfect time to talk about the women of Ukraine, and then, Madam Secretary, if you could jump in with your thoughts. We talked earlier with Madam Zelenska, and you had some incredible things to say about the power of this woman among many, and broaden out. But first, Madam Zelenska, can you just briefly, please, talk about the women of Ukraine, their resilience, and how they have had to adapt to this historic time, and how they contribute to Ukraine's future?
Можу сказати, що все, що нам разом, тому що я не відокремлюю себе від всіх інших українських жінок, нам разом зараз потрібно пройти, це дійсно випробування. І хтось взагалі змінює свою роль повністю і змінює своє життя, а хтось просто продовжує робити свою роботу, хоча це іноді буває небезпечно, важко, навіть небезпечно для життя.
What I would like to say is that I don't separate myself from the rest of Ukrainian women. We are together. And what I would like to say, what I can say is that it is a trial for everyone, and we need to go through this experience together. Some have changed their lives completely, and they have new roles. Some continue in the same role, continue to do the same job.
Я хотіла навести приклад жінки, яка повністю змінила своє життя. І, на жаль, вона днями загинула під Бахмутом. Її звали Яна, вона працювала в ІТ-сфері перед війною і змінила своє життя, ставши волонтеркою і парамедикинею. Їй тільки-но виповнилося 30 років. Людина, яка жила повноцінним життям молодої людини, мріяла, займалася спортом. Одразу після того, як на нашу країну напали, вирішила повністю змінити своє життя. І, на жаль, вона його втратила. Такі жінки надихають, і я впевнена, що її приклад надовго залишиться в наших всіх серцях.
I will give you an example of a woman who changed her life completely when the war started. She worked in IT. She had a full life. She had dreams. She loved sport. Unfortunately, she died. She was killed very recently near Bakhmut. Her name was Yana, and she just turned 30. She changed life completely when the war started. She decided to become a volunteer and a tactical medic. We are inspired by these examples, and I'm sure that this example will stay in our hearts forever.
Але не менш надихають вчинки людей, які просто залишаються на своїх місцях, так як наші вчителі, наші медики, наші енергетики, серед яких багато жінок.
Many people who stay in where they are also inspire us. They are teachers, they are energy workers. They also inspire us, and they will stay in our hearts.
Мене надзвичайно надихнув один приклад. Я постійно розповідаю про це людям і буду продовжувати розповідати, тому що не можу зупинитися.
I was very inspired by one example, and I keep talking about it, and I will keep talking about it because I can't stop myself.
Я побачила відео, як одна українська вчителька веде урок онлайн зі свого ноутбуку посеред засніженої вулиці.
I saw a video on the internet when a teacher, a Ukrainian teacher, was conducting an online lesson through her notebook in the middle of a snowy street.
Я думаю, що ви всі знаєте, що в нас була велика проблема з електрикою всю зиму. І, відповідно, з Wi-Fi зв'язком, з інтернет-мобільним зв'язком. Тобто ця жінка просто знайшла Wi-Fi біля супермаркету, поставила свій ноутбук на стовпчик, який обмежує паркування автомобілів, і вона з всіми інтонаціями справжньої вчительки розповідала дітям матеріал, який вона мала викласти сьогодні. Ця картинка мене надихає неймовірно. Я розумію, що наші жінки можуть зробити свою справу, які вони віддані, навіть під тиском тих обставин, яких, здавалося б, неможливо продовжувати.
So this is just a woman, and as I'm sure you know, we had a very significant problem with electricity this winter, and it was very difficult to find Wi-Fi or mobile connection. And this woman found Wi-Fi near a supermarket, and she put her notebook on a parking barrier, and she continued her lesson with sounding like a teacher, with all the teacher intonations. And I'm massively inspired by this example, and I know that the women can do their job, and they are doing their job even in these extremely difficult situations.
І я швидко закінчу. Як сказав Дарвін, виживають не ті, хто швидше або сильніше, виживають ті, хто вміє пристосовуватися. Українці і українки вміють пристосовуватися настільки швидко, що наші вороги не встигають вигадувати для нас нові випробування.
Darwin said that it is not the strongest or the fastest that survive, it is those who can adapt. Ukrainian women and men have been adapting so fast that our enemies are not able to come up with new challenges for us quickly enough.
Amen. Madam Secretary.
Well,
On that note,
that is a good note to segue into talking to our two other panelists who have shown an amazing ability to adapt over their lives and careers. Billie Jean, I want to start with you. You have been one of the most prominent leaders and frankly one of the most effective leaders on the issue of pay equity for a long time. And largely thanks to your leadership, we have seen a movement, although we've got a lot of work still to do, as I said, with the latest statistics about how long it's going to take to actually close that pay gap. So how do we increase the rate of progress, not just in the United States, but around the world? And what do you say to people who think, oh, pay equity, that's no longer an issue?
Well, that's simple. Say no. But before we start, I just like to thank everyone, and particularly Madam Zelenska for being here. Just so you know, it's a sidebar here, but we have this tennis plays for peace. So our sport is trying to give as much as we can in every way possible to help the Ukraine. So I just wanted you to know that. Wonderful. And I've always had this saying that champions adjust or adapt. And I mean champions in life, and that's what we've been talking about. And pay equity is so important. Until we have this one-to-one, we have a long way to go. Please, women, follow the money. Follow the money. Because I'm older, women were taught never to follow the money in the old days. So I'm listening to your stories as I met some of you. I'm like, yes, because you follow the money and you talk about the money you've made. Because what can money do? Fantastic things in life. It gives you freedom, mobility, all kinds of things that we never dreamed of. And having different generations up here, we've had different experiences, and we're going in the right direction psychologically, but the reality is we're not making it. And everyone I talk to about pay equity, they say the biggest problem is women, and I've heard Gloria talk about this, about not having control over like contraceptives, not having control over the laws, custody of your children, all these things that really matter to people. We have to change that. I always think, I know Harold went to law school. I don't know how many others here did, but I didn't. But I would have if I hadn't played tennis. My plan was to go to law school. And I got my former husband through law school, but I was going to go as well because for legislation purposes, to change the laws, because that's where it happens. That's what Title IX did for us in the United States and beyond, because a lot of people not from the United States come and really get a lot out of. But every one of us is an influencer. So everything you do does matter. Because so many times, particularly I'll hear women say, well, I don't really matter. You matter. Everyone matters. Everyone deserves to be represented. And everything you do does matter. Every word you say, your actions, everything. And at work, demand. And also for you who hire, please hire on potential, not just performance. That's the past. Okay. If you're job hunting, here's the guys. They look at the 10 things. They can do 5 out of the 10, and they say to me, I'll get the job. I'll bluff the other 5, no problem.
No, they'll lie. They'll say, I can do all 10 and 20 more.
Oh, correct. That's even better. So the women go like this, though. They go, I can do 9 of them, but I'm not sure I can do that 10th one. I don't know if I'm going to apply. How many times did you hear this? I was at Starbucks with women leaders, and this was the story I heard. Because I said this example, and this woman raises her hand, and she says, that's me. They could do 9, but wasn't sure about the 10th one. And so I said, what happened? The leader, who's the head of public relations there, and public affairs, not public relations, love it, public affairs, he said to her, I want you to take the job, the boss, will not let you fail. And that's another way to think about it when you're hiring somebody. You're going to tell them, you're going to make sure they're not going to fail. And that's really helpful and reassuring. So I just want you to maybe, I don't know, things to think about. But as far as the gender gap, we have so far to go, and I'm so disappointed we haven't gone further. In the last 20 years, we've just been at a stalemate. So it's up to us, and particularly the younger generations here. You can do this. This is your chance to change the world. So let's go for it.
Amen. And Gloria, you have been pointing out for decades that while women can and do work full time in the paid labor force, it is still often expected they continue to work full time in the unpaid labor force. And as you look at where we are and think about what now needs to happen to move this agenda forward, what are you hoping to convey to this audience and to everybody watching?
How long do we have? Well, I'm glad we started out with the whole concept of work, because in fact, until work is divided equally at home, that is, until fathers are raising infants and little children as much as women are, then men maybe won't be able to develop their full nurturing patient selves, which of course they are, and they have, and children will grow up not thinking that men can be as loving and patient as women can, and that women can be as active and achieving in the world outside the home. So I'm so thankful for this conference. I mean, on Spaceship Earth, okay? And I hope that we raise our sights and we meet each other and we continue this conference wherever we are, right? I mean, this can be a revolutionary cell right here. So thank you to all who created it.
Well, you're so right that everybody has a role to play. And you know, right now in the workforce, there sadly still is a kind of fatherhood wage premium and a motherhood wage penalty. And it's just very challenging and difficult for a lot of people in the workforce. But I want to go back to the point you were making, Billie, about people who actually run businesses, because you run a business. I mean, you are, you're a woman-owned, woman-founded consulting and marketing firm. We know what you've done in the world of tennis. So what's your message specifically to founders and CEOs about, these equity issues and the role that you can play when you're in a position of responsibility and management?
Well, CEOs can make things happen really fast. The more powerful you are, the faster you can make things happen. One of the things our company does is we meet with CEOs and ask them to make sure it's equal pay for equal work. First thing we ask, do you have that here? We get a lot of not sure. We do know that they don't care. Here's what they always say when they don't care. They're not going to do anything about it. I just want quality at my business. We know right then it's not going any further. But the ones who do start to ask, Mark Benioff did this with Salesforce. One of his employees came in, well, actually two. Cindy Robbins was one of them. And they kept saying, well, you talk about equality and pay equity and all this. It's not really true. And he says, what? It isn't? Do you have the numbers? So they showed him the numbers. He says, by tomorrow morning, that'll be taken care of. Then they bought 14 other companies. And he said to his people, he said, I want you to check their cultures, because usually when you buy a company, it brings a certain culture with it. So he said, I want to know. Not one of them had equal pay for equal work. Not one. And he changed that like that because he had the power to do it. So if you're a CEO yourself, or you know other people that are in positions of power, go to them and stress this, stress it. You are an influencer. Every single person, every single day of your life, you're an influencer. That's why engagement, that's why having this Forbes conference is so important. How do people change? How do we actively listen? You have to actively listen to have change, to have engagement. That's how things change. That's why countries meet countries, powerful people. Secretary Clinton can tell us that. I read your book. Wow. That's power. But that's how we change for the better, is to actively listen, engagement with each other, talk to people that don't look like you, don't think like you. I think it's really helpful. And every human being deserves to be represented. Every single human being. And we do not understand inclusion unless we've been excluded. So inclusion is much more fun.
Gloria, you helped establish in the United States the Take Your Daughter to Work Day, which was such a great program. And, you started that so that, girls could have a chance to get into a workplace, figure out what their career opportunities might be. Now we know that decades later, women are the majority of the college educated in the United States, yet are still underrepresented at the highest levels of leadership in most sectors. And of course, that goes far beyond the United States. That's a global fact. So why aren't we seeing more women in highest positions of leadership, since women have gotten themselves educated, they've gotten out into the workforce, they've really put themselves in the marketplace, and yet they're stalled and not getting where we think deserve to be?
Well, there are a lot of reasons, as we know, and one is the unfairly unequal responsibility for raising children. Another is just the mystique of masculinity. But I just, I just want to point out to you at this moment in time how different the history of my country and the world would have been had we had Hillary Clinton. Instead, instead of Trump.
Well, that's a conversation stopper.
For another day. I have a question, actually, for Madam Secretary Hillary Clinton, and perhaps for all. And this is from Fran Katsudis at Cisco. She says, each one of you have had some of the most powerful voices in advocating for justice, for change, for women's rights, in many cases during high-stakes moments. So what's your advice as we continue to use our voices and learn to use them more effectively in those high-stakes moments when it really matters? Do you have advice, tips on communicating effectively, like you're face-to-face with, I don't know,
whomever.
You name him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear from everybody, but, you know, I think that there is still a lot that we can learn, keying off of what Billie said about the opportunities that women have in every single walk of life, every single kind of setting, to not only speak up for themselves, but also for other women. And I really want to underscore that, because too often it's a lonely time when you're the only woman, or you are a woman who is in a position of having to speak up or try to make a point in a not very friendly atmosphere. So 3 quick things. 1, just accept the fact you have to be better prepared than anybody, no matter what your situation is. That just goes with the territory still. So just be willing to do whatever it takes to feel confident that you know whatever it is you're talking about and you have a very clear idea that you want to communicate. Secondly, practice communicating. I mean, communication is a skill like any other. And I've had so many women and girls say to me that they're just scared to death of public speaking.
Mm-hmm.
They rank it as among the worst things that could ever happen to them. And, I think they have a limited horizon about the worst things that could happen. But nevertheless, that is the feeling that they have.
Yeah.
So you have to work on that.
Practice on your phone.
Practice on your phone, practice in front of a trusted friend, practice in front of your pet. I mean, just whatever it takes to feel like you're going to gain confidence as you speak. And then thirdly, look for allies. You know, as often as you can, find others who share that view you have, whatever it might be. As Billie said, 2 people walked into Mark Benioff's office in Salesforce to make the point, hey, we talk a good game, but we're not living up to our objectives, so let's go out and do something together. And also, finally, just know that every time you stand up for yourself, you stand up for literally tens of thousands, maybe millions of people who don't have the voice or the access, the opportunity that you do. That's what Olena is doing, traveling around the world. She is standing up on behalf of her country and the people who are the most vulnerable and marginalized. You don't have to be in the middle of a horrible war that is breaking every law there is and committing crimes against humanity to stand up and speak out and know that you're doing it not just for yourself. Somehow that might make it easier. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot that, we can learn from each other and to support each other. Billie, what do you think?
Right on, sister. No, it's true. No, it's just you made me think about my childhood and how scared I was. I couldn't even give an oral book report in 4th grade. And the teacher called my parents and told them I'm going to flunk reading if I don't give it. And I was up all night crying, and my parents said, you have to do it. But the thing that helped me the most was playing tennis, playing sports. Because if I wanted to be number one in the world at 11, when second time I ever picked up a racket. I was in this match in Santa Monica, I'll never forget it. And I started humming and hawing whether I was going to win this match, because whoever wins in our sport has to get up with the microphone, and you've got to at least thank the umpires and volunteers and the people who ran the event. And I kept thinking about this in the back of my mind during this match against Carol Caldwell. I'll never forget it. And all of a sudden, I said to myself, Billie, I want to be the number one player in the world. Do you know how many times you're going to have to get up and say thank you to somebody? And so I went on and I won the match, even though I was thinking about losing it, because I was so afraid. And there's only 5 people in the stands, by the way. This isn't like at center court at Wimbledon or playing Bobby Riggs with 90 million people watching. But that was a turning point in my life. I love kids to get into sports, especially women, because it teaches us to trust our bodies. Do you know how many women are taught not to trust our bodies? It's horrible. So you learn how to trust your body, then you know you're strong. We have so many Paralympians now, too. So we've got everything. But it teaches you to show up and be there and to speak up, like Hillary was talking about. I'm allowed to call her Hillary. I got permission.
You're so lucky.
But the point is, think about your own lives. And I know somebody asked me earlier, because I kept meeting some of you, and they said, well, talk about facing your fears. Well, that was one of them. But one of the things, because of public speaking like this, I said to the people that work with me, get as many speeches as possible. And I could hardly swallow after I said that, because I need to face my fears. I need to face my fears. I need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Oh, it's so tough. But you can do this, and I don't know if that'll help any of you here.
No, it
I hope
absolutely
it
does.
Yeah,
We
because
love
it's
it.
so scary. I mean, and I was just fortunate to have 2 parents, and my dad believed in me as much as my mother. And that was huge, because I have a younger brother who went on to play 12 years of Major League Baseball. And they didn't care for any good either, which is great. They never asked us if we won. All they cared about was health and education. That's why they liked us in sports, to be healthy, to move. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting how things evolve.
Well, I love how you shared, and this is important, that it's scary. It is okay to
so
be
scary.
scared less. I mean, it is really difficult to speak in the moment, to have a negotiation. When it really matters, it's really hard, or to be on stage. So we have a few moments left. Gloria Steinem, I would love to hear your closing thoughts on using your voice, especially at this time, and then a final question for Madam Zelenska. Gloria?
Well, what I was just thinking is that every time Billie Jean said something that struck home, the audience laughed a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And I just want us to value laughter more. It is the only emotion that cannot be compelled. Mm-hmm. You can cause someone to be afraid, obviously. You can even cause somebody to think they're in love if they are kept dependent for long enough. But you can't compel anybody to laugh. And in our Native American culture, there is a god of laughter who represents freedom. So I just want us to value that, to value laughter as a proof of freedom, a proof of joy. And I'm so grateful to this audience for laughing at all the great right points.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. It is actually, laughter is useful. It'll help you through some tough moments. So Madam Zelenska, if you could please, as we close out this incredible conversation on International Women's Day, what is your message to the women of the world?
Це складне завдання.
Difficult task.
Мені здається, що Це той день, коли, на жаль, раптом всі згадують про важливість жінок, але це не має бути єдиним днем в році.
It seems to me that this is the day when everyone suddenly remembers of the importance of women, but it should not only happen on one day a year.
Я хочу, щоб ми всі пам'ятали, що рівність – це нормально. Це не те, за що ми вже мусимо боротися і відкривати людству якусь новину. І все це завдяки цим жінкам, які сидять на цій сцені. Я вже зростала з відчуттям того, що мені відкрито все, завдяки тому, що хтось багато років тому почав про це постійно говорити.
I would like us all to remember that equality is a normal thing. It's not something that we should be fighting for. It's not news that we should be telling the world. It's not a sensation. And I would like to thank all of the women on this stage, because thanks to them, I was growing up, knowing that there are a lot of things I can do. A lot of things are open to me.
Тому мені зараз невимовно легше говорити про рівність, тому що для мене це вже нормальність. Крок тільки за тим, щоб всі інші, окрім жінок, також зрозуміли, що це нормально.
So it's much easier for me to speak about it because I understand that equality is normal. And I think the next step we need to make is to make sure that all women understand that it is normal.
Not only women, and men also.
Absolutely. I love that. Do you want to give a final thought to our audience? We have 30 seconds. I want to close out. Secretary Hillary Clinton.
Well, I think that the message should be that there's not one day to celebrate women, and there's not one day to talk about the challenges we face and the opportunities that are there for us to take advantage of, and that there is strength in numbers, supporting each other, supporting our own path forward, but bringing others along with us. That should be our goal, and that's really what this conference is all about.
It exactly is. Secretary Clinton, stronger together.
Stronger together.
Gloria Steinem, Billie Jean King, First Lady Olena Zelenska, thank you very much. As we celebrate these legends, will you all help me throw to break? What we'll all say together is Morning Joe. We'll be right back right now. 3, 2, 1. Morning Joe will be right back.
Stronger together indeed. This concludes our day programming. Thank you to our phenomenal speakers and to each one of you for making this an amazing International Women's Day. We would like to once again thank our presenting sponsor, Cisco, and our supporting sponsors for today, AARP, Carrot Fertility, and Saudiyat Rotana Resorts and Villas. We now encourage you to take a moment to relax and prepare for an evening of enchantment at our Forbes 3050 Summit International Women's Awards Day Gala, taking place at Louvre, Abu Dhabi at 7 p.m. Buses will depart promptly from the Saudiyat Rotana at 6:30 p.m. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. We hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.